Hi, welcome to Running and Talking with Kelly. We got Coach Alex with us, and we're going to talk about our favorite books today.
Hi,
Uh,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm really excited about this topic because I love to read and I love to run. So we're just matching all of that together.
I love it when we can mash up a bunch of stuff. I love reading in the morning with my coffee and just taking a little bit of time. And if I can read about running, then I feel like I've been running, which
Right, for sure.
that's a that's another whole topic, the psychology behind
And
running. So
yeah, another topic, another good one.
Um, before we get into our book picks, Alex, I'm just wondering, it's hard sometimes to find time to read. When do you find, what time of day do you find that you can actually sit down for a second and read?
Uh, that's a really good question. I read a lot at nighttime, like before bed. I'll probably read for like 20 minutes, a half hour. It's a really great way to wind down, especially if I run in the evening, because as we know, running like gives you more energy, right? So you have energy to go through your day. But I find reading kind of helps settle my brain, gets me ready for sleep. Sometimes I will fall asleep reading, but a lot of times, if I find a book that I'm really engaged in, I'll have a maybe a hard time falling asleep, or sometimes it'll keep me up a little. But it's really a great time to read for me. How about you? When's your best time for reading?
Definitely the morning. I love reading in the morning. I am a morning person, so I'm up early. You're a morning person too,
I am, but I tend to hit the ground running, so I kind of need
so
that
to
like
speak.
lay down time with a book.
Yeah, I like reading in the morning and sometimes if I have a chance when no one else is around, I'll feel like I can read guilt-free.
Hmm.
But at nighttime, I'll try to read, but I just fall asleep so fast. I'll usually, like, I have fallen asleep while reading. I'm not these books, of course, but anyway. So the biggest takeaway from this little chit chat, I hope, is that you guys find the time whenever it is to just read some. And some of these books are like you had mentioned before, are ones that you can't put down and you just want to keep reading, and others are ones that you can just read one little chapter at a time. So anyway, so we'll get started with our kind of our favorite picks. So we're just basically picking one book each, but there's one extra, like a devotional, that I wanted to share with you also. So we'll hit my pick for one of my favorite books ever is
Oh, this is a great book.
it is awesome. Marathon Woman, Running the Race to Revolutionize Women's Sports by Kathrine Switzer. So I actually got to meet her at an event in downtown Rochester. It was June 7th, 2017.
Oh,
And it
cool.
was the 50th anniversary of when she ran the Boston Marathon as the first registered uh, runner who was female. So back then, which was interesting, that women weren't allowed to run the Boston Marathon. They never had gender as a question on their application.
Right,
So
right,
she didn't fill it out and she just put I can't remember what her last name was at the time, but she just used her initials.
right. It
Um
was just Kay.
just K, and they assumed that it was a Kevin or whatever, and so they just had official, she was able to run the race. But I thought that was an interesting thing. So I actually bought the book there, and she signed it,
Oh,
and
cool.
I have it here, my signed copy, and I just was looking at it again today, and it it's signed to Kelly, the Marathon Woman of Summershire Drive.
It's fantastic. I
I
love
thought
that.
that was pretty cool. So anyway, uh meeting her was awesome, but reading this book, and Alex, you've read this book, right?
I have.
You have your copy too. I highly recommend this for every female runner and male runner for that matter. But um I could talk about this book for an hour. But since we're going to try to keep it to 5 minutes, this part,
Good luck.
I know, right? Just some of the highlights of this book I enjoyed was there was a lot of history in there. So how she started running and growing up, when she went away to college. She was a journalist, a journal major, majoring in journalism, I should say. And she had been running, and at the time, and actually, I remember my mother, when I started running, was concerned about this. a lot of people were concerned that women shouldn't be running because our insides were going to fall out of, you know.
That's crazy to me to hear that, especially, from our families who we like to think of as like being so supportive, to say, no, I don't think I'm not so sure you should do this.
Yeah.
For that reason, it seems
It's
crazy.
it's kind of archaic. Women can't do that. Women shouldn't be exerting that much effort.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be sweating that much. Like they were literally, those were the reasons behind you shouldn't be running. They thought women could die from running that distance, and so it was a protective instinct. Why they weren't allowed to run marathons.
Right.
So it was interesting because when she was running, she actually went to Syracuse University and started running with the cross country team, which was a boys cross country team, but she ran with the guys. And she ended up developing a very good relationship with staff at the school named Arnie. And they ran together, and she built up her mileage and was doing more and more. I don't think she realized what she was capable of, because she had been hearing about how it's not possible for women to be able to do that for her life. And so now she's seeing, you know what, I think they might have been wrong. I think it is possible.
Yeah.
So I think that in the book, reading about the development of that friendship that she had with Arnie, who was the one who told her about the Boston Marathon and encouraged her to go when she said she wanted to do it, and trained her. I thought that was a really just a beautiful part of that book.
And I think he was really forward thinking in that too, that most men of the time would not have been so accepting and so outwardly supportive of a woman, making that run. And the fact that he was willing to do that, knowing that they were going to be up against some huge odds. Because I feel like everybody at that time knew that if you were a woman trying to get into that, there's a reason she didn't put her first name down. She knew that she wasn't going to be allowed to run it.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of support from him, and also a lot of guts on her part to do it. And
Yeah.
that was one of my big takeaways from this book was it took, running a marathon isn't easy as it is, and then to be a pioneer on top of that is just really next level.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what was interesting is that she was accepted by others. It was more the people that were in charge that weren't as accepting. So like the Boston Athletic Association, the BAA, was not willing to accept her as a runner even after she finished and proved that yes, a woman can do this. They still had a problem with it. It took years for them to years of advocacy on her part. So before I get to that point, spoiler alert, although most people probably know, but she was the first woman to officially run the Boston Marathon in 1967. I believe it was 72 when they finally actually fully allowed it. But while she was running the race director, Jack Semple, actually assaulted her, said, "What are you doing in my race? Give me that number," and wanted her out of the race. And you can see, actually, I think, here you can see the lower left photo there is him trying to pull her off the course, and other racers around her, including her boyfriend at the time who was running, one hit him and pushed him off of her so she could keep running. But could you imagine how terrifying? She's running a race. Like, I'm running a race. I run marathons a lot. We run races a lot, Alex. And if someone came up and assaulted us and said, "Give me that number,"
right?
I mean,
I wouldn't know how to react. And the fact that she just just kept running was really, really remarkable. And I think too, the other runners around her were to be commended too, because I think not all of them knew exactly what was going to happen when she hit the course.
Right.
And so they were taking a bit of a risk too by running with her.
Yeah, for sure. And it's recorded in her book. She says a lot of the men that were, because it was all men that were running the race, had said, "Wow, you're gonna run the whole thing?" "Yes, I'm running the whole thing." And I believe she said everyone that she had spoke to, all of those guys said, "Wow, it's great to see a girl here. It's great to see a girl run this." Like, the other male runners believed that women could do this too. So that, I think, was encouraging for her. But so fast forward, she finishes the race. There's a lot of backlash with it. The club she was kind of part of, they were threatening to not allow them to return to the race. So there was a lot of advocacy that went on. I think they talk about this event, which I figured was going to be the main focal point of this book, kind of in the middle of the book. And then there's
Yeah.
half of the book left. And I was like, what else is there? And you know how they say life is a marathon, not a sprint? I know that's a saying. And I think
Right.
that the title Marathon Woman wasn't just because she ran this Boston Marathon and was the first marathon woman there, but she was also a marathon woman in the fact that she spent years advocating for women to run in the marathon and
Yeah.
for women to be seen differently, and through the years. And she was very, very integral in getting the Boston Marathon to accept women runners. She was instrumental in allowing for the marathon to be a women's sport in the 1984 Olympics. Was the first time.
I know. It's funny you just went there because I was thinking the same thing, that I'm pretty sure it was 1984 was the first year that the marathon was in for the Olympics for women.
Yeah, isn't
I mean,
that crazy?
1984,
Like our lifetime.
like we were alive. We remember that. That floors me. And to think like she was doing this, in the 1960s when, my mother was alive and could see this. And I don't know, it doesn't feel like that's ancient history to me.
No, I
This is
know.
recent, and 1984 is really recent.
1984.
That's only 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that so I think that's what that Marathon Woman title is really about is,
Yeah.
Not only was she the first marathon woman for Boston official, but that she also lived the marathon of this long, patient effort to try to include women in this sport, in the sport of marathon. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And in these photos here, you can see the bottom left is her. This is the other thing. You can see what she's wearing in that photo. It's sweatpants, probably cotton, long sleeve,
Yeah.
bulky. There weren't running clothes for women.
No. But
Women
even
didn't
if you look
run.
at what the men are wearing, they're wearing some, big old fashioned, cotton sweatshirts
Yeah.
and socks and all that. So
And then this one, the bottom right, you can see Catherine. This was from the 50 years later. She was running the race. I believe she was 70 at the time. She looks
wow.
fabulous. But now she's wearing racing clothes, good technical clothes, has her actual sports bra. So the clothing for women runners has advanced quite a bit, as it has for men.
That's a great topic for another podcast too, is to talk about running gear.
Yes, for sure. But I wanted to share this. This is just what's on the one of the things that Bart Yasso, who also writes one of my favorite books. I love Bart Yasso. His quote: "Running may be the connective tissue, but the true essence of Catherine's journey is a passage to a bigger world. 50 years ago, Catherine opened the door and literally thousands of women ran through." So I just think that is super awesome. So this is Coach Kelly and Alex saying, get this book, read this book, borrow this book. You can borrow it.
I have it. Who wants it? You can borrow it.
Great. So it's a wonderful book. You don't have to be a marathon runner to get something out of this book, and you don't have to be a female either. I mean, it's just a great book. So read that book. Alex's pick. Can you share the title and the author?
Yeah.
And tell us about this book.
All right, so this was my pick. This is called The Rise of the Ultra Runners, A Journey to the Edge of Human Endurance by Ed Herron-Finn. If you don't know who he is a journalist, and he's also a runner. He had been a marathoner for a long time, and he really believed the marathon was kind of, the race. Like that is the one that you really want to do and that you should always try to tackle. But then he had been approached by some of the magazines that he was writing for to go out to the desert and run an ultra stage race. And his initial reaction was, nope, I am not going to do this because ultra running is weird. They walk a lot. It's a different kind of thing. And it was really his wife who said, if you're a runner, you need to try to go do this. And he got the bug, and then he went on not just the one stage race out in the Oman Desert, which is a really great part of the story that really pulls you in at the beginning. But he really goes on to explore all these different races, and not just the races, but the runners who run them. Because ultra runners, as a lot of us know, are kind of different kind of cats. Um, and it's a very different kind of race, and he found that he loved it. There's a couple quotes in here that I really enjoyed, that he talked about, you know, how people tell him something like, bloody hell, that's crazy, rather you than me. And we hear that, I think, a lot from maybe other runners or other people, about ultras. But this was a really well written book. He talks a lot about how he met a wide variety of people. And one of the things that I was really interested in is he goes on to talk about how they, some of the shoe companies like Nike and Adidas had approached some regular marathoners to come and try some of these races. And they bailed out really soon because it's a different mindset. And I think that is one of the biggest takeaways that I took from this book, was that the author really learned a lot about himself through this, and about his ability to run and to run through pain, and to really look inward when you're out there, because it's just a different kind of environment. And he felt it was very welcoming, and I think that's probably true.
Yeah, Alex let me borrow this book. It's funny, I have a thing with books. I don't like to lend them out because I'm afraid I don't get it back. And I was trying to figure out, I know I read this book. Where is it? And Alex is like, I lent it to you and you gave it back. That's how it works. But anyway, I loved this book, and I remembered, you know, that he's this journalist and trying to figure out why, you know, what makes up an ultra runner? What is it in their personality? And you can see in the part of the title, it's a journey to the edge of human endurance. And like you had mentioned, Alex, that you learn to run through pain. You just learn that when you think you've got nothing left, you just keep going. You just dig a little bit deeper because there's something there. You just learn where that edge is. And some people have crossed the edge and have paid dearly for it with horrible injuries, or, you know, what have you. But you know, there's that that quote, you never know how far you can go until you've gone that far. I mean, you really go to that edge. And I believe the holy grail of ultra marathoning is the UTMB race, and that's where it ended. And he went to it. And to in this journey, he was trying to discover, what is it that makes up somebody that's willing to go that far, that's willing to withstand the pain, and then keeps going, and then likes it like when it's over. And I was just looking at a book review someone else had done, and they're like, you know, is it because of they need to explore? Like, is an ultra runner have that piece of, you know, wanting to explore the world, or is it they want to be part of a tribe of people because they, you know, have these like-minded people together? And it is very unique when you get a group of ultra runners together, the care that they have for one another. And for some of these big time races like that OTMB, they're also competing against each other, but in a supportive way. So it's just interesting what makes up an ultra runner. And I'm not sure. I know this particular person that did the book review thought, you know, maybe because we live in this world of, you know, where we lack that sense of exploring, we get stuck in our every day-to-day rut or whatever, that, you know, that idea to be able to get out for a weekend and run 50 miles, or, you know, do this crazy race in this remote area, it just fills a pocket in ourselves that needs filling, that we don't get in our day-to-day. So I found that really, really interesting. I highly recommend, you know, 2 thumbs up for this book. I really enjoyed it. And again, I don't think you have to be an ultra runner to enjoy this book.
No, I don't think so either. One of the things I really like are, and I this won't ruin it, but I'm going to read the last sentence of the book, because I think everybody has been in this kind of situation, especially runners and especially ultra runners. And he says, and it is there deep in the pain cave, as they told me all along, that the fun really begins. And I know from like running the last 15 miles of Can Lakes with you, that for you, that's where the fun really begins, right? Is in those last miles, or when we did the candlelight, and at the end of that last hour, I mean, that was some fun.
That was the most fun of the 24 hours, was that
Yeah.
last hour. Yeah.
So I don't know, but I think that idea of trying to find the fun and trying to find the joy in things can happen sometimes when you least expect it. And I think maybe that is a takeaway that is bigger than just running, that you can find that in a lot of different places.
Yeah. And I think, like when you mentioned Can Lakes, I've done it 9 times. This fall will be my 10th time of doing that race. And I always enjoy the first part because I'm feeling fresh. And then the struggle begins. And it's really hard around 26 to 35 miles. Around there,
I can't imagine why.
it gets hard, and mentally struggle, and things hurt. And then if I keep saying, but I'm going to keep going because I know I can do this, and I just keep going, and you get past that point, and it's like getting that second and third wind. Like you do get that feeling of, this is it. Like now I'm enjoying it. And when you see what you are actually capable of doing, it's exciting. And that's the thrilling part of it. So, and like you said, it doesn't have to be just about running, but when things get hard, we can either call it quits, be done, just do a 5K of life, so to speak, or we can be like, you know what, life is hard, but we're going to keep going, and we're going to find the good parts in it. And I think that's why running has so many compliments to, living life, that, that's definitely, especially with ultra running, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like
So
this pick.
I really recommend this book. I thought this was great. Again, Rise of the Ultra Runners. If anybody wants to borrow it, I have this one too. So
Yes, you just have to give it back and then remember that you had borrowed it and say, thank you, Alex.
exactly.
Oh, all right. Before we finish, I wanted to just mention this. So people know I am not a spiritual person. And I like to spend some time in thoughts. And we've talked about multitasking so many times, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And this, I feel like it does that. If you're a kind of person who likes to have a little devotional time, or more, quiet time in the morning with your thoughts, but you also want to include running stuff, this is a great book to get. I have this on my iPad electronically, but it's called The Runner's Devotional. I'm not sure how to say that name, by Dana and Dave, I'm just gonna say. And there's 52 chapters in it, and it's based on running a marathon. And what I love about it is there's all these different parts. So what I the truth is, I go through and do all of these devotions in the weeks and days leading up to a big race. So I've gone through this book probably 20 times right now. But what I like about it is each entry it builds as your training builds towards a marathon. So it's focused on a marathon. But each entry starts with a theme. So like we'll use week 1 by example, is determine your purpose. Other themes are, your goal, or, getting your speed and building endurance. Those are the different weeks. It follows 52 weeks or 52 entries. So the first week 1 is determine your purpose. Then there's a runner's note. So it's a short blurb by a runner. And in week 1, the runner's talking about, I went to the doctor. I didn't realize I had gained weight, and then my sugar's up, and, I need to do something to get my health back. Then there's a little thing called the race, which is a small section that talks about the race of life. And just a quote from week 1, just watching other people run won't change your fitness level. You actually have to do it. So it's one thing to be like, oh, and then it kind of equates it with a Christian life in this book is, you want to lead a good life and be kind to others and all that stuff. You could say that, but if you don't do it, it doesn't mean anything. And it's the same with running. If you're just watching people run, you're not going to get fit. Then there's a little thing called the result, and it's just kind of putting everything into practice. And then there's this my story, which is a runner's story about their experiences and where they've run. It's really just a neat little thing. A think it through, just a few questions to ask yourself and to spend some time thinking about. And then there's a section that's just about real specific things about running itself. And during week 1, it focuses on the difference between aerobic and anaerobic activities and what that is and why you need to pay attention to it. And that's just that first week. So there's 52 weeks or 52 chapters. It's excellent. I absolutely love it. Like I said, in the weeks leading up to a marathon, I'll read them all because there's all sorts of lessons and I love them, especially that on the run advice is excellent advice. And it's just, and you can see our meeting's going to end in 10 minutes. So I highly recommend it. If you're the kind of person that wants to just spend a little time and thought and maybe a little devotional time, it's excellent.
Yeah,
So
no, I think this would be great. I may have to get this one. So
I recommend it. I really do. Even if you're not spiritual or, whatever.
it's all about getting strong.
Yes. I'm a big person. I've read lots of different books of different religions and stuff like that. And you know what? There's something you can get from all of them. So I highly recommend that for anyone. And especially as you lead up. And I would lend it out, except that I do have it electronically and I'm not going to give anyone my iPad for the week.
No.
But you can purchase it. You can download it for your.
I think you can find that locally, actually. There's a bookstore in Pittsburgh called Book Culture that you can find a lot of those in, because that's where I found my Running is My Therapy book, which I didn't really get to highlight, but that's also a really great book. And so you can find them at your local bookstore too. So
you know where else you can get books?
Shop local.
Is the library. So I went to the library.
My problem is I like to write in them, and they frown upon that.
They do. However, like the Irondequoit Library has a little bookstore where you can buy books, and I just bought this book. You can't really see it, but it's called Running, a Love Story: 10 Years, 5 Marathons, and 1 Life-Changing Sport by Jen Miller. And this was in the bookstore for $1. $1.
Wow. Very cool.
And I was just reading the back of it. It's let's see. She's a middle of the pack but tenacious runner. Miller hones her skills while navigating relationships with men that, like a tricky marathon route, have their ups and downs. As she pushes herself toward ever greater mileage, running helps her learn to love herself first, revealing independence, discipline, and confidence that she didn't realize she had. So I'm looking forward to reading this, actually. So I'll read this and I'll tell you, I'll lend it to you, Alex, as long as you give it back.
I promise I'll give it back.
So yeah, so you never know. When I went to, when I was there just earlier today, the little bookstore in the library, Born to Run was there. An excellent book. Excellent
book. That's a really good book too.
That was $1. $1.
I may have to go get that if they still have it, because I lost my copy somewhere.
I somehow have 2 copies. It's not yours though. I borrowed it from somebody and then I bought it and I never gave it back to that person. Isn't it? I have an awful track record with books. I'm telling you right now, I'm not like that any longer. I'm very good at getting books back to people.
Hang
right,
on to
Alex?
the good ones.
You have your book back.
Books are like friends. Hang on to the good ones.
That's right. Exactly. Well, Alex, this was awesome chatting with you about books. We could go on. We could do this every so often and just review another book.
Absolutely. There's so many great books out there. We could do this like every couple of weeks.
I think so. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're looking forward to, this is episode 4, right?
Yeah.
This is our 4th podcast. Thanks for listening. Please comment. Let us know what you think. I feel like we're getting better at it. So we'll keep going and keep sharing, and we'd love to have your feedback.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right. Take care, Alex.
All right. Bye.
Bye.